Welcome back to the channel and buckle up because this debate dives straight into America's most divisive issue, gun control. One speaker is pushing for tighter regulations to prevent tragedies like school shootings, while the other is defending the Second Amendment as a safeguard against tyranny. But here's the twist. Both claim the Constitution is on their side. Stick around because the clash you're about to hear doesn't just stop at policy, it cuts into how we define freedom itself.
So I just had a question on your thoughts on if we need more gun control in the country or not. I'm very pro protecting America and the citizens that live in it. And so I think that we should have more gun control because there's a lot of school shootings that happen, as we mentioned. And, I just think it would do a lot to protect the people. And I think the Second Amendment also qualifies that we should have regulations for guns. I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Sure. Do you think gun ownership is a right or a privilege?
I think it's a right, but it comes with responsibilities.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, I think that there should be things in place, things like red flag laws and things like that. The AG just approved Mel Gibson to get his gun rights back, even though he had a domestic violence charge. So, I don't think the people that commit these violent crimes should be able to buy guns and things like that. And I think we should have red flag laws in place to make sure that those violent criminals aren't getting guns.
Okay, so let's go. So tell me, in your perfect world, what would constitute a red flag?
Just things like, we can look into any kind of medication and things like that that can affect someone's...
That could be dangerous, right? That could be there's a lot of vets that come home from war and that are on a lot of medication. A lot of vets could have their weapons taken away.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying... Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. It's the pollen or something. Thank you.
I'm not necessarily saying, it's mainly to prevent, future shootings and things like that, and also... putting in place things like a federal registry so that we know, the types of guns that people have. And, it would just essentially be a federal registry that shows these are the guns that this person has, in case a cop has to go on something like a domestic call. That's the most dangerous call they can go on. So,
yeah, I could see you're coming after this from a good perspective. Let me ask one other question. What would you say is the ultimate and final purpose of the Second Amendment?
I think it's self-defense against a tyrannical government, which...
We agree. Sure. Great. Keep going.
Now pause for a second. Did you catch that? The first speaker argues a federal gun registry is just common sense for law enforcement safety. But the counter-argument hits hard, that any registry, no matter how harmless it looks, is the first step toward mass confiscation. This is where the debate explodes, because it's not just about policy anymore, it's about trust. Do you trust the government to use that information responsibly, or do you assume it will eventually be abused? What do you think, is a registry protection or a dangerous overreach? Drop your thoughts below.
Well, but I think within the Second Amendment, it also implies that we have high regulations in the first four words.
Sort of. Well-regulated militia actually meant well-armed, but that's a separate issue. But
well, how do you know? You're interpreting what the Founding Fathers
Well, they said it in the Federalist Papers, right? So it's not just me, but also in the Heller decision, in the 5-4 decision, that said that gun ownership was a right. This was a hotly debated thing.
But so do you disagree? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you disagree with the idea of a federal registry like that?
Oh, without a doubt. The only reason you'd want to register the guns is if you want to confiscate them.
Well, or to make sure that people like officers of the law are protected and know what they're going into. A domestic...
That's a good argument.
Right.
To your credit. I will try to make a better argument where the problem of the government knowing where every gun is would then lead itself towards mass confiscation. And I would agree with you, a well-armed citizenry is the greatest protectorate of liberty and freedom in this country.
Even though the Army has things like drones and tanks and things like that outarm, citizens that have
Yes and no. We've seen it in several instances where at least a citizen, that's a good argument, but I would say a little flawed, where the citizens are able to protect themselves in some ways. It's a much harder population to control.
I understand, but so you think a federal registry would infringe on the rights?
Potentially. I think that there's no good argument, other than potential. I ascribe to the government bad motives and bad intentions when it wants to infringe more on these types of freedoms and liberties.
Well, I understand. I just personally don't see it as an infringement because, like we just said, and I think we agreed that owning a gun is a right. However, yes. I think it was responsibilities. But also I wanted to ask, is voting a right or is that a privilege?
Well, it is a right, and so felons can get their rights back. Right? And so, but rights can be suspended or delayed. And we both agree with that. So, for example, somebody in prison doesn't get guns.
Right, no, of course.
Somebody in prison doesn't have the same free speech rights that you might have.
But what's the first thing that you have to do if you want to vote in this country? You have to register, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a federal registration to be able to vote in this country. So why not, and we can agree that, keeping safe and, keeping our elections to where people who shouldn't vote aren't voting is, that's keeping America safe because we don't want people who
That's a fair
vote.
point. I would say there's there's a technical difference between a voter registration roll and a gun registration
Right, guns
roll.
are much more dangerous.
Well, also, but guns in many different ways, they would go after the guns a lot more than, like, I don't know, the voter registration roll.
Well, how do we know, though?
My worldview comes out of one in the 20th century, where almost every totalitarian government went after the guns first, and the confiscation of guns then leads into the erosion of freedom and liberty.
Right, but wouldn't you say in the 20th century, as you just said, that the disparity between the technology that citizens had to protect themselves compared to what the military had, wouldn't you say that there was a much smaller disparity as opposed to what we see nowadays?
Somewhat. I think that's a fair point.
So,
I'm acknowledging that's a fair point.
okay.
But do you see my perspective as well?
No, I do
that,
understand.
That an
It's-
armed
it's-
citizenry, also it says shall not be infringed, so we have to kind of wrestle with those two things
Right, but
simultaneously.
so if it's just a semantics argument, then to that point,
Well, it's not. I mean, semantics is meaning. That's literally what the word means. But
right, but
so,
you're saying because it says shall not be infringed, we can't do anything. But
No,
does
no,
that
I'm
mean,
saying,
does that
though,
mean
that
voting rights can be
I'm
infringed?
saying
Because it doesn't say it cannot be infringed.
I'm saying I err on the side that more government regulation around guns means that they'll try to take good people's guns away, which then results in less global, or let's just say national, freedom and liberty.
I understand, but wouldn't you say that more guns can potentially lead to more danger and less guns
Yes
would
and
lead to less
no.
danger?
I mean, there's plenty of evidence to show that states that have more, so like if you take Houston and Chicago, about comparable populations, Houston actually has warmer weather, which means potentially more gang violence. They have about half, if not even less, the amount of homicides per year than in Chicago. Chicago has much stricter gun laws than Houston, like incredibly strict gun laws.
I understand, but I'm also, well, I think part of what plays into that is the gun laws that are around those cities. They're a lot more lenient than those cities themselves. So I think, I'm not saying that's entirely the cause of it, but I'm saying
I've heard that my whole life, so yeah.
Right, but I'm basically just talking about preventing people that have committed crimes such as domestic violence. I know I mentioned Pam Bondi gave Mel Gibson his rights to purchase a gun again, even though he pled guilty to a battery domestic violence charge in 2011, and yet now he is able to purchase a gun again, which I disagree with because he committed a violent crime. I mean, do you disagree with that personally?
No, I mean, I don't know the details of the case, but I think I've met Mel Gibson. I think he should be able to own a gun. I mean, like
Just off of speaking to him though, even though with his criminal history. And
I don't.
everything?
Again, I don't know all the details. Do I think that the idea of taking his rights away because of something that happened that I don't know all the details about 14
Well, he
years
pled
ago?
guilty to it though.
Again,
I mean,
I find that to be a little bit of an infringement on basic rights.
even though he literally
Again, I don't
committed
know the
violence against
details
his life.
around that, but I guess we're getting to a place where, do you think anyone that's convicted of violent crime should be able to own guns again?
No, not at
Oh,
all.
wow,
If they're
okay.
committing a violent crime, absolutely not. I think we should protect people in America, which I think you agree with, and I think
Yeah,
that
but
is how we protect America.
that's a balance. Are we going to really say the federal government is going to protect us from ourselves when it comes to guns?
No, I mean it's less about the federal government taking away guns and more just allowing them to protect their citizens. And it's not about getting rid of guns. I'm a gun owner myself. I go
No,
hunting. I
I'm
was
not
on a
doubting any of that.
competitive
What
team.
state
but
would you say has the gun laws that are the most appealing to your worldview?
I don't know specific state laws, if I'm being completely honest with
Fine.
you. But
something to think about.
I'm speaking, even just the federal registry itself, I think that would protect, a lot of officers of the law. Like I said, when they go on domestic calls, that's the most dangerous call that an officer
So
of the law
there is
can go on.
there's an informal registry, not a formal one. Just gun dealers are supposed to report
Right,
gun,
but do you
gun
really think
sales.
that they do all the time, though?
No, of course not. Obviously, I mean,
Right,
I
so
live in
wouldn't the
reality.
federal
But
registry eliminate that problem, then?
again, I would go back to a formal registry. You register in order to confiscate. It is a prerequisite towards confiscation.
Isn't that just a slippery slope argument, though? If you give
Well,
one
it's
thing,
not.
then
It's
another
a
thing's going to go?
historical argument, right? We see that throughout totalitarian dictatorships throughout the 20th century, where if you want to take the weapons away, you first ask for a collection of all the items that you then want to collect. But I could see you're coming after this in good faith. I tend to be on a much more libertarian side, even though I'm not libertarian. Where we actually need looser gun laws because I think that
Looser gun laws?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
In
especially in
what way?
states
Like-
like Chicago and Illinois, where it's very basic Second Amendment rights. So I'll give you a great example.
Okay.
In a state like Rhode Island or New York,
Right.
it could take a woman upwards of 30 days to get a gun. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say a man wants to actually do harm to her, and she gets threats and the police won't intervene. I think she should be able to get a gun that afternoon to protect herself.
I understand that.
So
but
in that case, I think that gun laws should be looser.
I understand.
I think,
in,
like-
in that regard, I do agree with you.
Cool. So like
Absolutely.
that would be
but-
an instance of that. And I also will go back to this idea of red flag laws. We have seen case after case of it being abused, of veterans having their weapons taken away because of fake accusations and let's just say, faulty accusations, saying that they're mentally unbalanced, so on and so forth.
But do you think that they could investigate cases like that and see if there aren't any medications? I mean, a lot of these
They can.
antidepressants can change your brain
For
chemistry.
sure.
And
And
completely
some of
alter
it, though,
you.
is they take the guns away first and they ask questions after. It's a difficult, very, I don't want to say gray area, but edge part of the law where I tend to, and a respectable position, respect to you, I tend to err on the side of it is a right. The government screws up more than it does correct in this specific portion. And the downside to having more guns is far better than the downside of having only the government have guns.
And there you have it, a clash that lays bare America's deepest divide on guns. On one side, safety, red flag laws and registries to stop violence before it happens. On the other, the warning that government power grows when citizens surrender their rights. Both sides acknowledge the risks, but their solutions couldn't be further apart. The bigger question, does America need more protection from criminals or from its own government? Thanks for watching this breakdown. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more explosive debate analysis. And let us know in the comments, who do you think made the stronger case tonight?